Hi, my name is Isabel Quinn, and today I'll be talking about my theory on digitized development. Since the rise of technology in the past decade or so, social media platforms have become very prominent in today's society, especially among young adults. However, have we thought about these technologies and social media platforms and what they're doing to our development and identity? So, what is digitized development, anyways? Digitized development is a construction of one's identity due to digitized platforms such as social media. So if you try to Google digitalized development theories and its relation to how we develop, you may find little to no research that is absolute and solidified. So since social media has boomed in the past years, what we know is that vast new research is quickly and continuously approaching. And the social identities covered in our class textbook went over racial, ethnic, sexual, gender and gender, faith and spirituality, disability, social class, and emerging identity theory perspectives. One concept that was mentioned in the Emerging Identities Theory Perspectives chapter was digital experiences and identities. However, there was only, I think, 5 paragraphs explaining how interaction with digital technologies and online identities can affect a student's growth and overall development. So there is yet to be a theory based on this type of development, which is why I was really interested in creating my own. Until new theories about digitized development are created, I've come up with my own theory based on how I believe social media platforms influence development, specifically social identity development. This theory specifically explores how social media platforms can alter an individual's development. And it also explores the 4 different phases an individual might go through while developing their identity alongside digitalized platforms. And lastly, this theory will explore what the implications are for the up-and-coming generation of students. So this theory has phases because this type of development can be very fluid in the sense that an individual can spend different amounts of time on social media platforms at different points in their life, which results in being like different phases, and it alters pretty much the dynamic of their development. And so during phase 0, individuals spend little to actually no time at all on social media platforms. And so since they don't spend any of their time looking at what others are posting and the different influences that it can have on their development, it doesn't affect their identity whatsoever. Moving on to phase 1, this is when an individual spends about 25% of their day on social media platforms. And so people at this stage don't necessarily engage heavily with others online, but since they do interact and see what others are posting, it does kind of influence their identity in some ways. So at this point, they can be looking at what they see online, and what they see can influence their values and their beliefs to some degree. At this point, they're kind of looking at what they see and kind of questioning it, but not really implicating it into their own values and beliefs. So moving to phase 2, this is where an individual spends more than 25%, so 50% of their time on social media platforms. And so since individuals in this phase, engage much more, it has a larger influence on their identity. And so at this phase, the identity of an individual can start to change due to the influence and trends that they see online. So for this project, I interviewed 2 students, and each of them identified themselves as being in phase two. So one of the questions during the interview I had asked was, do you show different sides of yourself when you are online? And student number one said, I do not post a lot on social media, but when I do, it is usually a one-sided version that doesn't hold much dimension. What I portray is usually a happy and perfect version of myself that isn't flawed. And so, in following that question, I asked, so what do you kind of attribute that to? And the student responded by saying, it's what I see online, Other people do the same, so I'm just following along. I then asked, do you feel your identity would be different if it wasn't influenced by what you saw online? And the student responded, oh, absolutely. This is sad, but true. But I do notice my identity change due to the things I come across online. It's so weird now that I think about it, but I'm sure I'm not the only one to experience this. So this part of our conversation just showed me that what an individual sees online can, in fact, have an impact on their social identity and the way it kind of changes as they are being influenced, right, by these different posts and statuses and images that they're being presented to online. And as well as it can alter their perception, and it can also change how they want to be perceived by others. So moving on to the second student that I had interviewed, they had a similar perspective to some degree. So student number two said, I have different constructions of myself depending on the site. Because I have different followings on each platform, I feel like my posts need to match my following. And so in that, I think it kind of shows that individuals may even have different social identities depending on the platform that they're on. And we have to really take that into consideration with how that can affect their overall development. And so lastly, at phase three, this is where individuals spend pretty much 100% of their time on social media. And individuals in this phase are most likely to be like social media influencers or people who depend on social media really as a job. So typically people in this phase are very easily influenced by what they see on social media, and they feel like they have to keep up with the trends and what's going on. And in that sense, it can affect their development based off of what they see and do online. And so in doing these interviews, I also came across a article by John Dalton and Pamela Crosby. And it explored social media and its influence on college students, development specifically. And it seems that the majority of the college students in that study were either in phase one or phase two, in my theory, which kind of just solidifies the fact that most of the college students spend about 25 to 50% of their time on social media. And so when working with them, we have to take into consideration the things that they have come across online can really alter the way that they are now. And so what this implies about identity and development is that students in this generation and in future generations even more, they're going to be heavily involved with social media. And so what they come across online may really skew their social identities, where they begin acting more like what they see online and less of who they really are based on their values and beliefs. And so looking back at the family of theories that we learned about in class, The major difference between my theory and those from the book is that my theory looks at a specific environmental factor that influences student development. And so this whole concept of digitalized development is so new that there's not really a theory that's been developed and backed up with research. So hopefully in the near future, there will be. And so I feel that digitalized development theories are really important to research within the present and future generation of students in order to give educators a better perspective as to how social media is influencing and impacting and changing student development in this technological and social media, dominant society. And so by gaining insights into this topic specifically can give educators, just knowledge for them to be informed and for them to give students the best support they possibly can in order to foster a positive development overall.